Alyssa Thomas threw an elbow directly at Caitlin Clark's head during the fourth quarter, and the referee responded by calling the foul on Clark instead of Thomas, and then in that same quarter, Clark received a technical foul simply for clapping her hands, not for trash talk, not for a shove, not for a stare down, just clapping, and that entire sequence tells you everything you need to understand about the physicality Phoenix was trying to bring into Gainbridge Fieldhouse. But what Thomas completely failed to account for was that Clark now has two teammates who will absolutely wreck you for touching their point guard, and they absolutely did, as Caitlin Clark's enforcers destroyed Clark's biggest attacker, Alyssa Thomas.
Within that, with her and Thomas, and there you go. As the hard foul is called on Hines Allen, Thomas walks away. Hines Allen has words.
It's like you knew that was coming.
I might have seen this battle go.
Alyssa Thomas had a very specific and clearly defined job in this game, which was to get physical with Clark every single time she came anywhere near the paint, set screens that felt more like car crashes than legal basketball plays, throw elbows in the post, and generally make Indiana's offense completely miserable from the opening tip. And Thomas ran that exact same playbook back in 2024 when she straight up body-checked Clark and the refs just put their whistles in their pockets and watched. It happened without any consequence, and Phoenix remembered that it worked effectively, so they brought it back without hesitation.
Take another look here at the heavy contact. A little bit of a shoulder there. Not a little bit, a lot of a shoulder there for Alyssa Thomas.
Yeah, they're not going to look at this. They might.
It's gotten the fans here fired.
Completely stuck and out of sync in that first quarter, with the shot selection being off, ball movement drying up entirely, and Indiana simply unable to generate anything clean against Phoenix's physical defense, and Kelsey Mitchell actually hit a three-pointer in the final seconds of the period, but without that shot, the Fever would have finished the entire quarter with just 3 points total, which means one made field goal in 10 minutes of professional basketball, and Phoenix was absolutely feeding off that offensive stagnation.
Popper able to win the jump. Thomas comes up with it, but is going to get whistled for an offensive foul. And she's looking at Nate Tibbetts. He doesn't even look to the back of the bench. He immediately signaled to take a look at.
Oh,
yeah, that's
saw
not going to
the
get
elbow extend from behind, and
that's not going to get overturned, I don't think.
Now let's talk about the elbow, because in the fourth quarter, Thomas and Clark got tangled up in a loose ball situation, and Thomas threw an elbow directly at Clark's head, with multiple camera angles catching it cleanly, and there is no ambiguity in the footage whatsoever, no angle where you could think maybe Thomas didn't do what she clearly did, but the referee reviewed the play and called the foul on Clark, not on Thomas, so Clark, who dodged what easily could have been ruled a flagrant.
This is a successful challenge. The timeout will be charged to Indiana because they're due. Phoenix will retain their timeout.
just like we thought. They would say this, okay? When you see the elbow, you go, oh, if she caught her, that would have been,
it could have been bad. Yeah.
Yes. But the officials are saying, Caitlin Clark put a little too much body into AT.
Walked away from that play with the foul on her own stat line, and when you see that elbow, you think that if she had caught her cleanly, it could have been bad, but the officials are saying Clark put a little too much body into the contact, which is the kind of missed call where a referee is screened out and just doesn't see the contact, except that is not what happened here, because that is a referee watching the whole thing happen, seeing Clark absorb an elbow, and then deciding. Clark was the problem, which is a completely different category of bad officiating.
41. 12 on the shot clock. Thomas bumps off Clark, misses.
And if that was not enough, Clark picked up a technical foul shortly after in that same sequence, and it was not for arguing, not for getting in Thomas's face, not for saying anything to the officials at all, but simply for clapping her hands, and that was it. The referee teed her up for clapping, and if you picture this pattern going back to 2024, Thomas hits Clark and nothing gets called, or even worse, the call goes against Clark, and it has been consistent enough that it stopped feeling like.
Clark from way outside drops a three. Couple 50-50 balls on the last two possessions have gone the way of Phoenix, and it turned into buckets. Clark, oh yeah! Here we go. Clark almost got that 5th foul. Find inside. It's Boston.
Coincidence a long time ago, because Clark was apparently just supposed to absorb it all, keep running the offense, and pretend none of it was happening. What Phoenix completely miscalculated is that the Indiana Fever roster in 2026 is not the same group that Thomas pushed around a year ago, and the moment she started throwing elbows, she woke up 2 players who had been waiting for exactly that invitation, and then Clark dropped 15 points in the second quarter alone, attacking Phoenix off the dribble, pulling up from deep, and suddenly a team that looked completely dead was back in the game and eventually tied it at 41 at halftime.
Double that time.
Clark. Mitchell is on an island. Clark wants to keep piling on. When will they pick her up here? She's not been afraid to let it fly from out there. Clark just spins off of Broshan. Indiana has numbers. Clark launch ahead. And Hall hits a 3.
Billings' connection being a big part of that stretch, and Fever fans have been waiting to see it click since Billings joined the roster, as Clark pointed out after the game that in the WNBA you do not get a lot of time to develop chemistry with new teammates, but she and Billings built that connection playing together internationally on Team USA. And you could see it in real time during that second quarter when Clark threaded passes into the post and Billings caught them and finished without fumbling or bobbling, just catching and scoring, and Raven Johnson found her spots too, so Phoenix could not just collapse on Clark and call that a complete defensive plan.
That one doesn't go. And Bonner and Clark continue. And players and officials now getting involved. Security has come off the bench. And Clark is trying to get these fans into it.
Dragging Indiana back into the game, Phoenix kept playing physical, and Dana Bonner got into it with Clark in a way that went past the normal rough and tumble of a WNBA game, and that is when Sophie Cunningham stepped in with no hesitation and no waiting to see how it played out, as Cunningham put herself between Clark and Bonner and made it pretty clear that if Bonner wanted to keep pushing, she would have to go through Sophie to do it, and here is where it gets interesting.
Well, this is fighting for position, but, I mean, Caitlin Clark issued a technical foul. You can hear the crowd react.
And Clark is perplexed and shocked as to why she was assisted technical.
Well, I will say, release and jump around would also be an option, you know, pulling the chair.
Because this is not something Cunningham started doing this year, as back in 2025 when J.C. Sheldon tried to poke Clark in the eye during a game, Cunningham stepped up to defend Clark even though they were still new teammates, drawing a clear line around cheap shots and eye poking and not caring which jersey Clark was wearing when she drew it, and Cunningham actually explained her thinking on this by saying that when you love people, you just want them to be good and be their best selves, and while that is not a complicated philosophy, it explains exactly why she reacts the way she does because it is not about basketball tactics or team strategy.
Boston can't finish. Pass ahead. Sheldon.
Swat! But just about not letting people get away with dirty play against someone she genuinely cares about, and now that they are running it back, that protectiveness has no limits, as Cunningham spaces the floor well enough that she cannot be ignored on offense, plays physical defense, and will absolutely not let anyone put their hands on Clark without answering for it, and in the fourth quarter, Cunningham picked up a technical in the middle of the chaos, but she did not seem particularly bothered by it because letting Bonner think she could keep escalating without any response was never an option Sophie was willing to consider. Go back to June 11th against Chicago, because that game explains everything about what Hines Allen did on June 22nd and why it mattered so much, as J.C. Sheldon has a history of going after Clark's eyes, and in that Chicago game, she swiped down at Clark on one play and then tried it again on a separate possession, forcing Clark to deal with that while also running the offense, calling plays, and trying to win a basketball game, which is a genuinely unfair thing to ask of anyone, and Hines Allen. What?
Go a few years in the Connecticut Mystics days.
Hines Allen wants the ref to pick up a foul now. Look at. Oh, yeah. Little shove, little this is my house kind of action.
It happened from the other end of the court and did not forget it. So a few possessions later, when Sheldon drove to the basket, Hines Allen absolutely destroyed her with a block that sent Sheldon crashing to the floor, which was not a clean basketball play that happened to be physical, but a full demolition. And the cameras caught Clark's reaction on the sideline right after, and she had this look on her face that was almost sympathetic, like she felt a little bad for Sheldon even though.
Well, we're already setting up a game for Wednesday night, by the way. But let's not forget DeWanna Bonner was a member of the Indiana Fever last season. And I'm not sure if she parted on great terms. And Caitlin Clark and DeWanna now on multiple possessions getting tied up.
And now Hines Allen and Thomas, who had a tuffle.
Sheldon had been trying to poke her in the eyes earlier, and that contrast between Hines Allen's ferocity and Clark just standing there looking almost sorry for the person who got wrecked was honestly pretty funny. But let's talk about why that moment connects so directly to June 22nd. Because for a long time, Clark absorbed cheap shots in the WNBA with very little protection from her teammates or the officials, and the league's pattern of letting physical play against Clark go uncalled became a whole ongoing conversation among fans and analysts. As Clark would get hit, the whistle would not come, and she would just have to keep playing, and that was apparently the deal. So when Thomas threw that elbow on June 22nd and the referee called it on Clark instead, Hines Allen stepped in immediately, and the confrontation with Thomas escalated to the point where Hines Allen shoved Thomas, and because she had already picked up one technical in the chaos, the second one got her ejected from the game, and she left the court having defended her teammate, which cost Indiana her minutes for the rest of the night. And every player on that Fever roster watched that happen and understood what it meant, because Hines Allen will go all the way to ejection before she lets someone throw elbows at Clark without a response.
Caitlin, you guys trailed by as many as 16 points in the first quarter. What led to the response we saw in the second?
Yeah, just fight. First quarter was embarrassing. Got to be able to space the floor, make open shots, and get downhill. I thought we did a lot better job getting our feet in the paint. That's what allowed us to give better looks.
And that changes how a locker room operates, because players run harder and compete differently when they know their teammates have their backs in a real and physical way, not just emotionally. Thomas had to know after Hines Allen got ejected for shoving her that every cheap shot she threw at Clark for the rest of the season was going to get answered, not ignored, not absorbed quietly, but answered. Because Phoenix had built their whole defensive approach around the idea that they could rough Clark up without any real consequences, and Cunningham and Hines Allen spent June 22nd making that approach look very expensive. Clark broke her own WNBA record on June 22nd with 6 consecutive games of at least 20 points and 5 assists, and she did it while absorbing elbows, picking up a technical for clapping, and watching her teammate get ejected for defending her, and that is the context around the stat line that makes the number hit completely differently.
Billings. Oh, nobody picked her up. She will waltz to the rim. And Indiana has gone from down 16 to up 10.
Clark's final line was 24 points, 9 assists, and only 3 turnovers in 29 minutes of action. And let's talk about what that assist-to-turnover ratio actually means in a game this chaotic, because 9 assists with 3 turnovers means Clark read the defense correctly almost every single time she decided to give the ball up. And she did that while also getting fouled, dealing with phantom calls, and running an offense that needed her to be everywhere at once, and her scoring and assists accounted for over 50% of Indiana's 86 total points. So when people talk about Clark carrying this team, that is not just a feeling, but simply math.
And the frustration in the technical, because there's 2 players just battling for position. Oh my.
And they're still going. Now it's Cunningham and Bonner. Keep in mind, Cunningham and Bonner have history as teammates. Nate Tibbetts out on the floor, Stephanie White out on the floor, and Amy Bonner is telling everybody to go to their benches as DeWanna Bonner hears it from this Fever faith.
Nick Billings finished with 14 points and 10 rebounds, and the chemistry between her and Clark that flashed during the second quarter comeback did not fade but held up all game, as Billings caught passes in traffic and finished at the rim in a way she simply could not earlier in her Fever tenure. And that is the connection paying off in real time, because they logged enough hours together internationally that Clark's passes and Billings's hands are now on the same page, and with Kelsey Mitchell dropping 22 points on top of that. Indiana had 3 players scoring in double figures, and that version of the Fever offense is genuinely hard to stop because you cannot just sag off everyone else and guard Clark.
It could have been bad, yes. But the officials are saying, Caitlin Clark put a little too much body into 18. Frustrating because I said it earlier, you saw it earlier too, like, 18 doesn't get moved very easily, and so she might not feel like that's that much of a hit, but the officials are looking at it, and Caitlin Clark is saying ball on, right? I was going to say, fans are enjoying a little bit of playground justice. It's like you paid for overtime, but it wasn't overtime, it's just a really long fourth quarter. We still have 5 minutes to play.
The fourth quarter got absolutely wild with 6 technicals and an ejection in roughly an 8-second window involving Thomas, Bonner, Cunningham, Hines-Allen, and Clark all in the same sequence, which sounds like something you would make up if you were describing a chaotic game to someone who did not watch it, and Clark's technical for clapping sat at the center of it all, partly because it was such an obvious non-call that got called anyway, and partly because Thomas had just thrown a clean elbow at Clark's head and walked away clean, and the contrast was simply hard to miss. Then Thomas and Bonner both stepped to the free throw line in the aftermath of all that chaos and both of them missed, and Clark stood right there watching it happen with a look on her face that said she did not need to announce anything, because ball don't lie is an old basketball phrase that means the universe corrects bad calls through missed free throws, and on June 22 the universe collected from both of them. Clark walked away with 24 points, the record, and a win, while Billings had her double-double and Mitchell had 22. And the only thing Indiana lost was Hines-Allen's minutes after the ejection. Clark walked into the post-game press conference and did not soften a single thing, with her exact words being that it was ridiculous that she got a technical for clapping, and she said that with her name attached to it on camera in front of reporters without any diplomatic cushion around it. And she actually went further than that by confirming after the game that referee Gerda Gatling told her the technical was for clapping and instigating, and Clark's response to that explanation was direct.
Up the tech tonight, 5th of the season.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I got a technical for clapping. So, like, if we should all just go on the calendar now and pick a game that I'm going to be suspended for if I'm going to get technicals for clapping. I asked Gerda. Gerda said that I got a technical for clapping. So, if any technical should be taken away, it should be that one. If it's truly for clapping, that's what they said they gave it to me for was for clapping. So it's just ridiculous. I don't understand it at all.
So even within that though, how aware do you have to be of the 8 technical fouls?
I mean, I'm going to play with emotion. I'm going to play with passion. And if they're going to give me a technical foul for clapping, then so be it. That's their choice.
Saying that if that is the case, then you just do not like competitive basketball, and that is just facts and reality, which is disappointing from them. And she also pointed out sarcastically that the league should just go ahead and mark a date on the calendar now for when she is going to get suspended if technicals for clapping are apparently something that can happen, while coach Stephanie White handled it more carefully by acknowledging that the team needs to stay composed while also noting
the league can come back and review that play, and I'd love to hear what they say of the reasoning of why I got the technical foul in that situation and why other players on their team didn't get a technical foul in that situation. If anything, split it. Okay, fine. Everybody gets a technical foul. That wasn't how they were handed out. So I'd love to know, but obviously that's what I went to Gerda and said. I said, why'd you give me a technical foul? She said, because I was clapping and instigating. I said, okay, then you just don't like competitive basketball. And that's just facts, that's just reality. So disappointing from them.
Not be allowed to derail a game, which is a coached answer, but it is also a coach who clearly agreed with her player and just could not say it quite that plainly in an official setting. Let's talk about what Clark was actually pointing at because she did not spell it out completely, but the pattern is right there, as Thomas threw an elbow at Clark's head and walked away clean, while Clark clapped her hands and picked up a technical, and those are 2 separate plays in the same quarter where the call went against Clark and Clark was the one absorbing contact both times. And she was not arguing that she played a perfect game or that the Fever deserved every call, but was instead pointing at a specific inconsistency and naming it out loud. The public reaction came fast, as Yahoo Sports, Fox Sports, and international outlets all picked up her quotes within hours because the officiating conversation around Clark has been building for 2 years, and this game handed everyone fresh material to work with, and it was not a slow burn but spread immediately. And here is where it gets interesting though, because Clark said all of this after winning, and she was not sitting at a podium trying to explain away a loss or redirect attention from a bad performance, but instead dropped 24 points, broke her own WNBA record, and then called the officiating ridiculous while sitting in the winner's seat, which is a completely different position to speak from because nobody can dismiss it as sour grapes. Phoenix was coming back to face Indiana later that week, and every piece of what happened on June 22, including the elbow, the phantom technical, the ejection, the missed free throws, and the record, was going to follow both teams into that rematch, and Clark now has 2 players willing to get ejected before they let someone throw elbows at her unchallenged.
Along with a team that scored 86 points despite losing Hines Allen in the game, and a very public complaint about officiating
that the league had not answered yet when the rematch tipped off, and this Indiana Fever team simply does not quietly absorb cheap shots anymore, as Cunningham and Hines Allen made that clear on June 22, and every team in the WNBA watched it happen. While Clark is breaking her own records, Billings is finishing at the rim, Mitchell is dropping 22 in a supporting role, and the toughness that Phoenix exploited in 2024 just is not there to exploit anymore, and Phoenix comes again in 48 hours, with Thomas and Bonner absolutely trying the same physical stuff again, but Clark already told the league straight up that if they are going to give her a technical foul for clapping, then so be it, because that is their choice, and Cunningham and Hines Allen will have something to say about the rest.